Hi, everyone. Good evening and welcome to our Thanksgiving segment at the Institute of Culinary Education. My name is Sue Gonsalves, and I have my assistant, Jessica. You're going to see her popping in and out of the video. Today on our menu, because it's Thanksgiving, I just want to say that every day of the year, we eat chicken, we eat beef, we eat shrimp, we eat fish, we eat all that thing. But all of those things. But on Thanksgiving Day, that's the one day that everybody wants to have a piece of turkey. So I'm going to be our menu tonight. It's going to be half of a turkey breast. I'm going to show you how to fillet that. We're going to rub some truffle butter with herbs. I'm going to show you how to roll it, tie it, and we're going to put it in the oven. Then we're going to be making some skillet cornbread with some jalapenos, cheddar cheese, and all that good stuff. And then we're going to be cooking some braised apple cider Brussels sprouts. And our turkey gets a pan gravy. So I hope you guys, if you have some of you at home, you probably bought some ingredients. I hope you guys some of you could be able to cook along with me. And if not, it's going to be recorded for you to watch. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to start with our cornbread recipe. You could our skillet cornbread, you need a 10-inch skillet at home. We're going to put this in the oven. We're going to get it nice and hot. And then we're going to add the butter to that. And then we're going to add the cornbread mixture. I'm going to pass this off to Jessie. Don't take that out yet. So here we have, you're going to need a few kitchen tools, like you need 2 bowls. You're going to need a whisk. And we need 1.5 cups of cornmeal. I did pre-measure this before, 1.5 cups of cornmeal. We need baking soda. We need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So all of the dry ingredients are going to go into 1 bowl. You're going to get your whisk and just kind of mix that up together. The second bowl gets our eggs. Our recipe says 2 large eggs. If your eggs are small, you could totally use 3. Cornbread recipes are very forgiving. I'm going to use 3 eggs because our eggs are not that large. So I have my 3 eggs. We're going to want to whisk this up before we add our buttermilk, 1.5 cups of buttermilk. So I just kind of want to break the yolks up. And then we add our 1.5 cups of buttermilk. So buttermilk gives your cornbread a nice, it stays nice and moist, and it doesn't dry out that easily. So wet ingredients in here, and then we have our dry ingredients. Over here, I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of Gruyere cheese, or you could use cheddar. I like cheddar because it has a stronger flavor. So you can also add a little extra if you wanted to. It's not gonna hurt that recipe at all. It's gonna be just great. It adds more taste, more texture. And then I'm gonna add some salt. You wanna add like a pinch of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, 2 pinches, and we're gonna add a little bit of black pepper to that, just to season that up. I just kind of mix this right here. So I have my cornmeal with my baking soda. I have my wet ingredients, and then we're gonna add some chopped chives to this here. and a jalapeno. I'm gonna put on some gloves for that because when you work with chili peppers, it's always a great idea to put, if you don't have gloves at home, you wanna make sure that you wash your knives, wash your board, and also wash your hands because you don't wanna go touching any part of your skin with that. So I'm gonna cut that off. And just finely chop this here, the chives. Chives it's a delicate herb and it has a nice subtle flavor, so it's not gonna overpower your cornbread. I'm gonna add this to my mixture. And here we're gonna add our jalapeno. So if you're adding any hot chilies, you wanna make sure that it's de-seeded. Cut both ends off. Cut it in half. Cut it back, cut it in 4 strips. So I could take the tip of my knife and just go like that. And just take the seeds off. If you like spicy, leave some of those seeds and the membranes. That's what makes your chilies hot and spicy. So I remove this. And I'm gonna finely mince this because I don't want to be biting into big pieces of chili peppers when I eat my cornbread. This is savory, so I want my peppers to be finely chopped. Here, I'm just cutting it really nice and small. And I'm still gonna have a little heat from my jalapeno pepper, even though I took some of the seeds out. I'm gonna add this to my cornbread mixture. And there I have all of my wet ingredients along with my jalapeno and my chives.
Chef, can people add corn kernels to the cornbread?
They totally can. You could add a little bit of cream corn too. And then here I am, I'm gonna add my dry ingredient, which is the baking soda and my cornmeal that I've seasoned with some salt and pepper. And I wanna whisk this until it's combined. And remember, I told you that I placed my cast iron skillet in the oven. I'm gonna remove that. And Jessica's gonna bring that over for me. Let's see, place it right there, thank you. That is piping hot. This is where I put my butter. See how it's sizzling? Even if the butter melts and it gets a little brown, it doesn't matter, it's gonna add flavor. Nice job, Jessica. So this butter is gonna add a moistness to the cornbread and also big flavors. Once it melts completely, then I'm gonna pour my batter into here and we're gonna put it in the oven. And you cook it at 300, our recipe has 425 degrees, between 20 to 25 minutes. If you have a convection oven, I would do 400 until it's nice and golden brown. And I'll show you the finished product when it's done. All right, my butter is almost there. I'm gonna pour. So because I have eggs in here and I have my cornmeal, I wanna make sure that I kind of get this in as fast as possible. I'm gonna shake this. And Jessica's gonna take this and we're gonna cook it in the oven. And that is your skillet cornbread. On our list, we're gonna do the apple braised cider Brussels sprouts, but we need to blanch and shock our Brussels sprouts, but we also need to cut up some stuff. So when you're cooking, especially any meal on Thanksgiving, there's so much for you to do. You want to make sure you organize your ingredients in order. You want to cut everything. It's called mise en place. You're putting everything in place. So when you're ready to cook, you just go with your tray with all of your stuff to your stove, and then we start cooking. So let's start with Brussels sprouts. I already Jessica cut some of them, so I've just left a little bit for you guys to see. So you're gonna cut the root end off. And if the first layer doesn't look that great, you just kind of remove that. We're gonna cut these in halves, and then we're gonna blanch it and shock it when we go over to the stove to start cooking everything. So if your Brussels sprouts are large, you want to make sure you cut them in half. If they're extremely large, you cut them in 4 pieces so that they cook faster. These are kind of big, but we're going to blanch and shock them so they could be able to get cooked. So that's your Brussels sprouts. We need to chop some rosemary. We pull that off the stem, the rosemary, the needles. So we're just gonna chop that. If you don't have fresh rosemary, you could totally use dry. Finely chopped. And we have a garlic clove that we need to finely mince. By smashing the clove, the skin comes off really easy. We cut the head off, and then we're gonna slice this and then finely mince this. So slice. Mince. So garlic is going to add a lot of flavor to this dish. You just want, by mincing this, we're going to cook it back in a cast iron skillet or a saute pan if you have at home. You just don't want your garlic to burn, okay? So I have my thyme, I have my Brussels sprouts, I have some apple cider in here, and then we have our pancetta. We're gonna render that. Rendering means when you put it in a dry pan and you bring it up to temperature and you cut it in dices or lardons, and then you just kind of get it nice and crispy. You always want to make sure you check to make sure there's no plastic on the skin. If there's plastic, you want to take it off. And we're gonna cut this down in smaller pieces that you could be able to work with. So I would start with that. Cut it into strips. If you can't find slab bacon, you could totally use the sliced bacon. You could put that, you don't have to cook that in a pan. You could put that on a cookie sheet with a resting rack, put it in your oven, and you roast it until it's nice and crispy. All right, let's cut these down to smaller pieces. So the smaller you cut it, the faster the fat is gonna cook off, and then it's gonna be nice and crispy. How's a cornbread looking, Jessica? A few more minutes, okay. So I went and I recut all my pieces into dices. And I have that ready. So I have this. That's all ready to go. Put it here. So guys, before we go over to the stove, I want to make sure that I cut up all my ingredients. Just gonna rinse my knife because I want to go ahead and cut for our turkey. I want to go ahead and I want to cut our mirepoix, which is celery and onion and all of the herbs before we go over to the stove. I'm going to show you how to butterfly the turkey and all of that.
One question on the Brussels sprouts. If you don't like pancetta, is there something else that you could use? And if you don't eat meat, is there something else you could put in, or can you omit that? Or
you could totally, if you don't eat meat or you don't like pancetta, you could add some shallots to that Brussels sprouts. You just cut your shallots in half and just blanch it with your Brussels sprouts and cook it like that in a pan. Shallots have a lot of flavor. So I just clean my knife and we're gonna go ahead and cut up. We're gonna cut up our mirepoix for our turkey and all of the herbs for the herb butter. So 2 sticks of parsley, not sorry guys, 2 sticks of celery. We're gonna cut this. If I'm putting this at the bottom of my roasting pan, I wanna make sure that I cut it into big chunks so that it's not gonna burn because I need that to create my pan sauce. So we're gonna cut it like 2 inches like that. Onions. When you're making mirepoix to put under your turkey, that's gonna create that gravy. You don't have to cut it really nice and fancy. You just want it in big chunks. So it's not gonna burn, or you're gonna have that flavor to carry over to your pan gravy. So if I don't want to do big fancy dices, small dices, I'm just gonna cut it into 1-inch slices. And that's my mirepoix for my turkey. We did ask you in our recipes to in our recipe to make sure you have 2 tablespoons of sage, fresh thyme. If you don't have fresh thyme, you could totally do dry thyme, and rosemary. You want to put extra herb because you want to give your turkey a really nice flavor. So let's start by chopping our sage, rosemary, and thyme. This goes into your herb butter. No, I need that one. There you go. So in here, I have all my herbs. I'm going to chop my parsley now. And then I have some truffle butter. You could totally substitute truffle butter for regular butter. I'm actually going to show you something a little different from our recipe. I added a little extra butter, regular unsalted butter, to the truffle butter. So the flavor is not going to be so intense. Here is our 4 ounces of truffle butter, and Jessica added a little too much butter to this dish here. I'm going to take away some of the other butter. So I have this. I'm going to soften my truffle butter with a fork. I add a little bit of the regular unsalted butter. Half of a turkey breast, it's big, so you want to have enough butter to spread on there. So once I kind of mash that up, I'm going to add my herbs to that. You're going to see how much you might not need all of the herbs, but I added almost everything. I just left a little, like maybe a teaspoon back in there. We're going to season this with some salt, kosher salt, and some black pepper because you want to give it flavor also. So there you go. Beautiful truffle herb butter. So once we have all of that done, we're gonna head over to the stove to start cooking, to start blanching our Brussels sprouts. I need to roll the turkey. Yes. All right. So we're gonna start by blanching. Jesse, I need a little more water. My blanching water went down a little, just a hot one, yes. So you want your water to be at a rolling boil. Is it warm? I'm just gonna add a little extra water to this to bring it up. Once it comes to a boil, I have my Brussels sprouts that I'm gonna blanch and chop. And I also have an ice bath. An ice bath is when you take ice cubes, you put water inside, and so we're gonna blanch our Brussels sprouts. We're gonna par cook it, and then we're gonna plunge it into the ice water. So what that does when you blanch it, when you blanch it in hot water, it brightens the color. And it also par cooks your Brussels sprouts. So once you finish that, you dump it into the ice water, and the ice water stops the cooking right away. That process is called blanching and shocking. Once we remove it from the ice water, we're gonna start. We're gonna add it to our cast iron skillet with the rosemary and the garlic and stuff. So while I'm waiting for that to come to a boil, I'm gonna turn this on. So cast iron takes a little while to get heated up, but once it gets hot, it cooks really fast. So here's my Brussels sprouts. Water is coming to a boil. I'm gonna render my bacon by starting it in a cold pan. And once the pan gets hot, it's gonna start rendering. So you see how I have like little cubes here? The smaller you cut it, the faster it cooks. Yeah. That's a rolling boil. I wanna add some salt to that, maybe a teaspoon of salt. And then we're gonna add our Brussels sprouts to this. When you're putting stuff in boiling water or hot oil, just don't put it in there like that, because it could be very dangerous. You wanna fill your spider or your slotted spoon, and then just lower it in gently into the water or hot oil if you were deep frying. That's safety. So, guys, you see the difference in the color already? You see the difference with that versus what I have in that bowl? It already brightened the color. I could see my bacon, my pan is getting hot. I could hear that sizzle. I'm just gonna add all of this. It's a lot of Brussels sprouts. So once I added my Brussels sprouts, what happened? The water temperature went down again. So I gotta wait until it comes to a boil. And then I'm gonna cook it for like 2 minutes and then take it out from the pot and put it into my ice bath. I could hear a sizzle going on here right now. Want to stir, you want to keep this from burning. So once in a while, you go to your pan and you kind of stir it. And once it comes out, once most of the fat is rendered, we're gonna place it onto a plate lined with paper towels. So the paper towel is gonna absorb all the grease. Guys, if your pan is smoking like this, there's a sign, you need to lower your heat because you don't want your bacon bits to burn before they were cooked, before they were rendered. If you're using a cast iron skillet like I'm using, once a cast iron skillet gets hot, it just retains that heat and it just starts to cook. It keeps cooking. Here I have my Brussels sprouts. It's cooking. The water came up to temperature, but it's still a little too tough. I'm gonna continue cooking that. I want to take a piece. I want to test it to make sure that it's cooked. I'm just going to do a quick tester. All right, it's almost there. I'm going to remove it from the hot water. And into the, see the color, it looks really beautiful. Anytime you're cooking Brussels sprouts on the stove top, or you're roasting Brussels sprouts, if you blanch it and shock it before you cook it, it doesn't burn and it retains that nice color. So by putting it in my ice water, I stop the cooking. It's going to get nice and cold, which means it's not going to overcook anymore. It's going to stay at that stage until I am ready to use it.
Chef, how do you know when the Brussels sprouts are cooked fully?
You test it. I took a piece and I cut it and it was nice and soft. I don't want it to be too soggy because then I got to recook it in my pan. You want it to have a little crunch too. So my pancetta is rendering nicely. I could see some of the fat coming off of this here. My pan is looking, see, I got some grease in here. I didn't put any oil or any grease because this has enough fat for that to happen. So in another minute or so, I'm gonna take this off, and then I'm gonna add my garlic, my rosemary, oil. So you want to keep turning it just to make sure that it doesn't burn. My pancetta had a lot of fat. So if your pancetta is very fatty, you want to take your time and you want to make sure that you get most of that fat out of there. Looking good. Jessica, how is our cornbread coming along? All done. Okay, we'll show you at the end what it looks like. I hope those of you guys that are cooking along with me get to do your cornbread and get to start your Brussels sprouts. If you're making a meal like this, you could have all of these things ready the day before Thanksgiving. You could blanch and shock your Brussels sprouts and keep them in a bowl in the fridge. You could render your pancetta and just have it ready. And the day of, you just put everything together. You don't have to cook it on the stovetop. You could make a sheet pan dish out of this too by putting it in a sheet pan and just finishing it in the oven to get your Brussels sprouts nice and golden brown. So my pancetta is starting to look really good. There's some fat that it's gonna take a long time to get that, but as soon as the bacon itself gets crispy, I'm gonna take this out. My pan is smoking. There I go. Turn my heat down low. You want to be careful because if you're cooking in a cast iron pan and it gets really hot, it's going to start burning whatever you have in there. So if you could see, right away, you see how much fat is coming off of this here. All right, I'm almost at that stage where I want to remove it. Just to get some of the grease off, we're going to put it on a paper-lined towel. On a plate lined with paper towel. And then we're going to add the rest of the stuff to this. So I'm going to turn this down. Jessica's gonna strain this really quickly for me, and then we're gonna start cooking the other stuff.
Chef, how much fat should you keep in the pan?
Just enough to coat your Brussels sprouts. Now, if you're using a cast iron pan, it gets really hot. So you want to make sure you have a towel to hold on to it. So this is the amount of oil, or this is the amount of fat I got off my bacon. I'm gonna use this for my garlic and my rosemary. So garlic burns really easy. So I'm gonna start by adding my rosemary to the pan. I'm gonna add my garlic. I want to give that a stir because I don't want my garlic to burn. All right, let me switch right. Watch your heat. I want to stir my garlic. I don't want it to burn. Once you keep it moving, it's not going to burn that easy. It smells good in here. I hope it smells just as good in your kitchen as it's smelling in our kitchen right here. So just to get give the garlic a tiny little golden brown color. We don't want it to burn. I'm gonna add, once it turns color, once it gets light golden brown, I'm gonna add the Brussels sprouts. I'm gonna add the apple cider, and we're gonna season it up. And that's your Brussels sprouts dish. How easy was that? All right, so it's almost getting there. I add my Brussels sprouts. I add my apple cider. And a recipe had called for a little bit of olive oil. I'm gonna season it with a tiny bit of black pepper. The pancetta has a lot of salt, so you wanna be careful, just a little touch of salt like that. And we're gonna cook this for a few minutes until it gets a little golden brown. And then once that happens, we're gonna add the pancetta to this dish here. I like to flip my pans with all my stuff. Cast iron pans a little heavy. Let's see.
Chef, while that's cooking, a few questions on previous recipes. In the cornbread, is there something that you could substitute eggs for?
You could use sour cream. You could use sour cream. What else you could use? You could actually use aquafaba, like the chickpea liquid. Cornbread is very forgiving. If you don't add eggs to that, and you add it already has buttermilk in there, you add a little sour cream to that, it's gonna still keep it nice and moist. It's not gonna be as soft but it's still gonna have a nice texture.
And then for the truffle butter, could you use truffle oil instead of the butter?
You totally can use truffle oil, but truffle oil it's really strong. So you want to be careful how much you add to your butter. It's very overwhelming. But of course, truffle butter is a good choice if you can't find, if a truffle oil is a good choice if you can't find truffle butter.
So about how much truffle oil would you add?
I would do like 2 ounces, half. So our Brussels sprouts is braising nicely here. Once all the liquid is cooked off, it's gonna start getting some color. And I'm gonna have Jessica come back. Jessica's gonna watch that. And we're gonna turn our cameras back to the cutting board where I'm gonna show you how to put together your turkey.
And one more question on the Brussels sprouts. If someone didn't want to do the blanch and shock process, could they shred the Brussels sprouts?
They could totally shred the Brussels sprouts. The cooking time is gonna be way shorter. And it looks really pretty also. So that's another good choice. Just keep. Yeah, I'm done with this bit. Yeah. So Jesse's gonna continue cooking the Brussels sprouts for us, and then we're gonna turn our attention back to the turkey. That's the most important part of this dish here. So guys, when you're working with any white meat, such as turkey, chickens, ducks, squabs, all the white meat, you want to make sure that you don't cross-contaminate anything. Your board should be nice and clean. If you have gloves at home, wear them. If not, wash your hands, wash your knife, wipe your countertops down when you're done. So this is half of a turkey breast right here. That's a big one. This is like a 8 to 12 pounds. So this is like 4 to 5 pounds of turkey breast here. So here's the skin. You want to keep the skin because this adds flavor. Turkey is like it's very lean. Whatever little fat you have here, you want to make sure you keep that. That's going to keep the breast nice and moist. If you don't like turkey skin when you're eating this, you could totally take it off, but you need to leave it on when you're roasting it. So we want to make sure we have it's covering that. I'm going to turn this over now. And I'm going to butterfly this. You want to make sure that you're not cutting down to the skin, because then you're going to make a hole and then all your butter is going to drip out of that. Just kind of open it up. Nice and flat. So when we season it up, when we put our butter, we could be able to roll it and tie it. So before I do this, I'm gonna season this up on both sides. So let's start with, I have here, I put some salt and black pepper together and I just mix that up. Season generously. So when you eat your turkey breast, you're gonna have lots and lots and lots of flavor. So I added that. I'm gonna flip this. I wanna season the skin also, both sides. Oh boy, this is a big turkey breast. Huge. All right, nicely seasoned. I take my herb butter. If you're wearing gloves, it's gonna stick to your hands. So just kind of get it all inside, like make sure, and then when we roll it and it cooks, it's gonna melt and it's gonna spread evenly. Get all that butter in there. How's our Brussels sprout, Jessica? Looking good. All right, so I have enough here. I have all. I'm gonna start rolling this. Then we're gonna tie it. So I cut like 4 pieces of kitchen twine. So when you tie your turkey breast or you tie a whole chicken or a duck or a whole turkey, it cooks evenly and you could be able to carve it. If you guys don't have kitchen twine at home, you could actually use skewers, metal skewers if you have. All right, this looks good. Cut that off. If your string is too long, just kind of cut it off because you don't want it to burn. And there I have my turkey breast. And I'm gonna place it on my half sheet tray. Before I put this on my tray to cook it, I want to make sure I put my mirepoix that I cut up. So all the turkey drippings are gonna drop onto this. So you cut it, you keep it close together like that. If you have a resting rack, and then you're gonna place this guy for every pound it's 20 minutes. So it all depends on how much pound your turkey have. And we're gonna put this in the oven, and we're gonna cook it for that amount of time. We have like a 5 pound there. We're gonna cook it for every 20 minutes for 1 pound. And we're gonna test it with an instant read thermometer that we have here. A meat thermometer, you always wanna make sure you check it. When I would check it, we're gonna cook it for 1 hour, get the skin nice and crisp. And then we're gonna check it. If it's not done yet, we just flip it over, cook it on the back side, and then we're gonna turn it back over and finish cooking it to doneness. So at the end, your turkey should be really nice and golden brown and well cooked. So I'm gonna take this away here. We're gonna wipe. I wanna show you, I'm gonna start plating. And so guys, you could prep your turkey breast the night before, put it in your fridge, and the day of, the evening of, you just put it in your oven. You could cook it. I cooked my turkey breast at between 350 to 375. And because it's so thick, you have to cook it on a low heat, not too low, 350 between 375, and just let it cook internally. And that's where you keep checking it every hour to see when it's done. When it registers 160 degrees, carry over cooking the 5 minutes, it's gonna finish that cooking. It should be to 165 degrees. If you put our butter like we did in ours here, it's gonna be nice and moist. So your turkey is not gonna be dried out. Warm the turkey, yeah. So I wanna show you my finished product, which is the turkey. Wait, the little sauce that's from, okay, whatever little you could get. I'm gonna take this off. And then we're gonna create a pan gravy. This is what my turkey looked like. Take this, that. So Jessica's gonna pick up the mirepoix. Some of it when you're baking, roasting your turkey, that's why you cut your mirepoix really big so it doesn't burn. So we're gonna pick up the ones in the center that didn't get burned. And then I'm gonna show you guys how to create your pan sauce from this. Now look at this guy here. I wanna remove the string. Always make sure you remove the string. And I'm gonna show you how to I'm gonna cut that and I'm gonna plate up my dish. So this is what my Brussels sprouts look like. That's my Brussels sprouts right here. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add my bacon to that. So see how the Brussels sprouts look nice and golden brown. I did not add any salt to this because the pancetta is really salty. And that's the Brussels sprouts. I wanted to come back over to the stove to show you how to finish the pan sauce while our turkey is resting. Okay, so over here I have my mirepoix that I roasted with my first turkey. And I have my onion and my celery here. There's a little bit of brown bits, but that's okay. That's gonna give me good flavor. I put it in a pan, and then I have my 2 cups of chicken stock. I have some white wine. I have all-purpose flour, and I have some butter that I'm gonna finish this off. So I want to get this nice and hot. I want to take a wooden spoon. You want to mash this down like that. Once I hear a sizzling, I know that this is getting nice and hot. I'm gonna add my flour to this here. I add my white wine. I deglaze. So I'm basically making like a roux, French roux with my flour. I want to cook off the raw taste of the flour so that when I add my chicken stock to this, it's gonna, once it comes to a boil, it's gonna get nice and thick. I add my chicken stock. I'm gonna change to a whisk attachment, a whisk, and then I'm just gonna whisk my butter, whisk the flour and the mirepoix into the chicken stock. Once it gets nice and thick, we're gonna reduce this by half. We're gonna season it up, and then we're gonna add our butter. So if you're reducing 2 cups of stock, you wanna have your heat on really high. So as it reduces, it gets the flour is gonna the roux is gonna get nice and thick. And then we're gonna strain this off. Just need a strainer. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt, pinch of pepper, and then we're gonna bring this to a boil. So the roux is only going to activate once the liquid comes to a boil. It's going to get thicker. There's a difference between if you use cornstarch versus flour. Cornstarch, you have to mix it in cold liquid and then add it to whatever you're cooking and then when it comes to a boil, it's going to get nice and thick. But if you continue to cook it, then it starts to thin off. When you work with flour and butter, once it comes to a boil, it just keeps getting thicker and thicker.
Chef, what type of white wine are you using for the gravy?
With nice crisp wine. You don't want a sweet wine. And if you buy any wine that's between $6 to $10, works really well for your for deglazing your vegetables or your meat or all that stuff. You always want to cook. There's a rule of thumb: always cook with what you drink with. But if you have a $60 bottle of wine, you might want to buy a $10 bottle of wine to kind of cook with that. So
could you use sherry? Wine?
You could sherry cooking wine. It's gonna add a sweeter flavor. You can, yes, if you don't have wine at home, but you would want to have, everybody have wine in their home, right? So you might want to use, a little bit of your wine that you drink with. So see how this is getting nice and thick. It's reducing, and that's what I want. And then once it reduces halfway, I'm gonna add my butter to this here. And then we're gonna strain it.
Do any of the truffle butter drippings go into the gravy?
Yes, some truffle butter drippings. So everything, the truffle butter drippings, the herb flavor, all that stuff went into the mirepoix that we add to the Oh, it's looking really good. So high heat for reduction. If you're serving a big crowd, like a turkey breast like that, you don't want to reduce your sauce too much that you're only going to have a little drizzle. You want to have enough so that everybody could get a nice little drizzle of sauce over their turkey. All right, I'm going to turn this down a little. And I'm going to look at the amount that I have in here. I'm going to cook it down for another minute, and then we're going to strain it. So you want to strain your sauce because you don't want to have those bits. It's already, all the flavors have already been infused. So we want a nice smooth sauce. So if you have a fine mesh strainer at home, and you want to strain that sauce. I'm going to turn it down. When you're adding anything, cream or butter, you don't want to have your heat at really high, because let's say, for example, we were adding cream to this here. You don't want your cream to curdle. You want it just to get that nice, add a nice richness to the dish. Yum, yum. Looking good. There you go. That's how you make a pan gravy. And you can make a pan gravy sauce from anything that you cook. You could do it from vegetables, chicken, fish, red meat, lamb, beef, everything. So you just want to stir your sauce until the butter is fully incorporated. And then we're going to strain this over a fine mesh strainer. It's looks good when it coats your spoon like that. We're gonna strain. Oh, look at that. I'm gonna add this back to my pan. And then I'm gonna mash all that flavor out of there. And then I'm gonna show you guys how to put together this dish. So we have our pan gravy. I'm just cooking it back a little to get it a little thicker. We have our Brussels sprouts. I'm gonna warm this up. And then we're gonna cut our turkey. So guys, before I move over to cut my turkey, I also have a little hack that we didn't give you in the recipe. When your cornbread comes out of the oven, get some butter, get some melted butter. Brush. And we're gonna brush the cornbread. Sauce is getting there. My Brussels sprouts is getting warm. All right. Butter is nicely melted. Oops. Oops. I nearly lost all my butter, but I saved it. All right. Butter melted. Brussels sprouts are nice and warm. Sauce is looking good. So we're gonna move over back to the plating table where I'm gonna show you how to plate this dish up. That wooden spoon. Oh, I have a spoon in here. Where's my? I had, oh, perfect. Okay. We're gonna cut our turkey. Perfect. I almost cut the string. It looked just like the turkey. Beautiful. I'm gonna place my Brussels sprouts. our beautiful cornbread, where we're gonna brush some butter on here. And our pan sauce. All right, who's coming to Thanksgiving dinner? So guys, I want to say thank you very much for zooming into our class, and happy Thanksgiving.